Hello, my name is Forrest Ledger. I'm in the Criminal Justice Group, and I did my final project on the recent legalization of marijuana in Montana. I was lucky enough to speak with Gallatin County Commissioner Zach Brown, who was generous enough to give me nearly 45 minutes of his time to chat about this issue. Obviously, I've condensed this interview for length and clarity, so please enjoy. Thank you.
We are all stakeholders in the sense that this is going to be a pretty fundamental change in our culture, and the way our economy works. And programs that are funded by taxpayer dollars in the state and local governments will be impacted by revenue from marijuana. And therefore, indirectly, we're all stakeholders in that ecosystem as well. Schools and parents and families are going to have to figure out how to deal with the sort of secondary impacts of legalized marijuana with kids. It has to be all of our jobs. I mean, it's there, it doesn't really stop anywhere. I think regulations are an important way to keep kids safe. Um, and so we have to use regulatory tools that are available to us and that can be somewhat effective, but parents are going to have to be thinking differently about how they raise their kids and how they talk to their kids about these issues, just like parents are doing already with alcohol and marijuana. The businesses that grow the and ultimately sell the marijuana are a huge stakeholder community, and they're bifurcated into two groups, I would say. But I believe the referendum language gave preference to existing providers who are already in Montana to kind of have first dibs at setting up recreational businesses as well. And then after a year, they were going to expand it to out-of-state providers. There's a huge spectrum of providers out there, and some are really good actors. They're good small businesses that care about people and care about producing a quality product. And there are other companies that are not good actors that don't want to be regulated because they're probably playing fast and loose with the laws, playing fast and loose with the types of chemicals they use to grow their plants. They're used to operating in the black market where lots of shady things happen. And when it's all brought above the surface, they don't know how to act or operate in an ethical manner. And then all of the services that we provide as the state and local government are stakeholders that will be impacted. So law enforcement, the jails, and incarceration system, um, you know, traffic and safety laws related to THC impairment, all these types of things that are going to kind of be impacted by a recreational marijuana program are, the folks that run them and the agencies that run those programs and provide those services are all stakeholders as well. The addiction services that we have in our communities are big stakeholders. And I am firmly in the belief system that marijuana is never been proven to be addictive, the same way that alcohol is and other drugs are, opioids and things like that. But they were very adamant and in a convincing way that people that are prone to addiction and have psychological addiction tendencies very much get addicted to marijuana, and that it's just a part of their substance abuse struggles. And so just we have to think about how to handle that as well. For us at the county level, I'm really interested in using any funds that might be available to local governments, whether that is through a local option sales tax, which was in the bill yesterday, but I don't think is still in the bill today and may not make it, or if we get some kickback revenue from the state, because we provide a lot of the local services and pay for them that are impacted by marijuana. And I would like to drive most, if not all, of the money that we receive towards rebuilding our behavioral and mental health care system, towards substance abuse treatment services and behavioral health and mental health services. That's really where I want to. There's an incredible need in this state and in our community to provide better services that improve outcomes in that space. And especially coming out of this pandemic, it's the issues are going to exponentially grow. Yeah, putting us on a relative scale and predicting how we're going to respond to all the issues is a hard thing to do. I think we're probably in a more tolerant community than some other communities in Montana. And I guess what I would like to see is a deliberate and honest sort of evolution as we figure out what the impacts are um, and figure out how this affects existing services and kids and families, that we just keep working at it and trying to improve outcomes. And we should definitely create a regulatory system that holds companies and providers accountable when they violate the safety and welfare of the system that we create, or harm consumers and that sort of thing. So I think I would be kind of a crime and punishment advocate for those companies. In terms of individual possession and use and petty crimes associated with that, I actually wrote the misdemeanor expungement law that the I-190 actually replicated their expungement section off of that law. So I'm a big advocate for sort of fresh start type laws. It's inevitable that there will be a pretty comprehensive expungement of people that have previous marijuana related crimes, just because it only makes common sense now that we've legalized it. Create minor regulatory punishments for minors in possession and use, like we do with alcohol. And then we need to have a more rational, sane, and science-based conversation about our driving and traffic safety laws. Everybody needs to get over the hysteria here, and we need to have a more deliberate conversation, and then set up reasonable science-based laws that keep people safe, which is the intention of, for example, of our DUI laws and things like that. And not to put a ball and chain around their ankle that's going to keep them in poverty for the rest of their lives. Which, going back to your comment about race, I think is the unsaid intention of a lot of these laws for minority groups. But maybe we have an easier chance at avoiding some of those types of outcomes in Montana because we have less diversity, which is always kind of a sad thing to say, but it's sort of realistic and true. If Jeff Sessions didn't go after states over their marijuana programs, I don't think anyone ever will. So that's my kind of short answer on that.
Yeah.
And I wish the federal government would get off their butts and at least decriminalize and participate at least in the regulatory systems that states are creating, so that it was more above board. The fact that marijuana companies are still having to deal with cash in the financial market is crazy. It makes no sense. It's a huge logistical barrier and implementation hurdle that doesn't have to exist. It's just really irrational and weird. So I think it's inevitable that the trend keeps ticking towards federal legalization, and it's just a matter of time, but we'll see. Even federal legalization, to me, shouldn't mandate that it can be produced and sold anywhere. And the state law that's implementing our program now is allowing counties, it's automatically permitting counties that voted for I-190 to have a legal marijuana system in their jurisdiction and issue licenses to businesses. And it's not allowing that in counties that voted against it, but it's allowing the counties to change their mind if they want to and opt into the program. And I think that's totally fair. There's enough bad actors out there that it's not like this whole issue makes me feel a lot of inherent trust that we're going to set up a smart, thoughtful, safe program in Montana. And they operate just like every other kind of somewhat self-interested corporation or corporate conglomerate acts in the legislature. They don't want to pay taxes. They don't want to be regulated, and they try and make these self-serving arguments and create programs that maximize their profits and disregard broader outcomes. It's legal to possess now,
Yeah.
and I believe sometime between October and December is when they will actually start rolling out the regulated recreational growing and distribution program. But to be really honest, the legislature is finishing things up today and tomorrow, and this is one of the last things they're negotiating on. So it's a little bit of a moving target. It's a really convoluted, dysfunctional conversation around setting up the program and negotiating over the details, because frankly, many of the folks in the legislature, or the majority of them, don't agree with the referendum and don't like marijuana, and therefore are not exactly trying to set up a functional program. Tax the hell out of it, at least to some, and try and find some sweet spot that it's enough tax. It's not so much of a tax that it creates another black market in response to the high price, but enough tax that we can capture the reality that it's a recreational product. If people need it for medical reasons, there is an existing medical program that is separate and different.
Right.
And then use all that revenue to provide services that help communities deal with all these impacts. And then I think you have to, like I said, set up robust and well thought out regulatory systems so that we can be very confident that these companies are selling safe products. Think about how to do some R&D to make the plants less water intensive. I think that's an impact that a lot of people don't think about. That's unfortunate, but marijuana is really a high consumer of water as a crop or an agricultural product. It's on par with cotton in terms of how much water and how many herbicides and pesticides it requires. And so I think we could activate our land grant university system to help us improve outcomes.
I think Commissioner Brown did a great job of summing up a very similar stance to mine in terms of an alternative policy. I think that we should have a heavy tax structure on the recreational side, as the medical side already has its own infrastructure set up. And I also agree that we should focus on regulations and making sure that bad actors, as Commissioner Brown referred to them, are not allowed to pollute marijuana products or undercut the industry to make money over the health of individual consumers. As Commissioner Brown mentioned several times, the legislature is not necessarily conducive to passing fast and effective marijuana legislation, in no small part due to their own personal biases towards marijuana in general. I think utilizing Montana's penchant for small government to pass relevant marijuana legislation on a local level could be extremely useful and is definitely a potential way to bypass a state legislature that is unwilling to promote the will of the people. As one of, if not the most racially homogenous states to legalize recreational marijuana, I think we have an unprecedented opportunity to examine the process and see how our marijuana arrests and incarcerations compare to other more racially diverse states in order to get to the bottom of possibly racially charged policies that have led to high incarceration rates due to marijuana consumption or possession in the past. Thank you.